Welcome to Study Loop.
For this problem, we need to recall our formula for elasticity, the percentage change in quantity divided by the percentage change in price. And we're also going to be using the midpoint method. How does that work? Essentially, what you do is you take the change. So let's say we move from 1 to 2, right? And that's a change of plus 1. And then when you go to divide, you don't divide by 1, you don't divide by 2. Instead, you divide by the midpoint, which is 1.5, right? Because 1.5 is the midpoint between 1 and 2. Okay? So for our data that we have, this is just a representation of the table that's in the textbook, but it shows the dollar value, right, at the two different income levels. In other words, it shows the quantity of pizzas that you're going to buy if you have a certain level of income and if there's a certain price on those pizzas. Okay, simple enough. So for letter A, right, we're going to move from $8 to $10 in the price of pizza. So the price is increasing by 2. And it's asking if your income is 20,000 and if your income is 24,000, what is the price elasticity? Okay, so where do we get all these numbers? Well, 8 divided by 36, 8 is the decrease in quantity demanded. 36 is the midpoint between 40 and 32. The reason we're using those two quantities of pizza is because they correspond with the price of 8 and 10, which is the change in price. And that's where we get the 2 and the 9 in the denominator. The 2 is the change in price. The 9 is the price, is the midpoint, excuse me, is the midpoint of those two prices. So what do we get? Well, we just get 1. If you do the math, throw that into your calculator. For the second part for 24,000, all you do is you use the third column and you get a midpoint between 50 and 45 of 47.5, and the change between 50 and 45 is 5, and the denominator stays exactly the same because the price change hasn't changed at all. And the answer that you get, we'll just round to 2 decimal places, is 0.47. Okay? Now, what we're going to do for B, we're going to use this exact same data, but it's going to be your income that changes. All right? And the price of the pizza is going to stay exactly the same. So, this is no longer the price elasticity of demand, but it's the income elasticity of demand. Okay? But our formula is going to work exactly the same. So, where do we get the 6 and the 27 from? Okay. So, whereas before you moved from one price to another, here we're just going to move from one income to another. All right. So, the 6 and the 27 you arrive at because 27 is going to be the midpoint between 24 and 30. Because at a price of 12, those are the number of pizzas you buy at 20,000 and 24,000 in income. Okay? So where do we get the 4 and the 22? You could write it out as 4,000 and 22,000, but I just chose to abbreviate it because mathematically it's equivalent and it's easier to write out. 4 is the change in income from 20,000 to 24,000. So we have a 4,000 increase. And what's the midpoint between 20 and 24? Well, that's just 22. And again, you're going to do the exact same thing for the second part. The 4 and the 10 is going to be arrived at because the change from 8 to 12, when the price is 16, the change from 8 to 12 is 4, and the midpoint is 10. So again, the formulas are going to work exactly the same. So what do we actually get for answers? Well, if you do the math, you just throw this into your calculator, you get 1.22 and 2.22. Again, rounding, so we don't have very long decimals to work with.